Welcome to the Why Not podcast with me, Chrissy Hawkins. In a world where everybody always asks you why, I'm here to ask why not. I'm going to do that by breaking down the mindsets of guests and my own to figure out what makes people say, why not? Hi guys, and welcome back to the Why Not podcast. So we are back today with an interview with Steve Griffen. So you may know Steve from Instagram as Steve Weightloss. I absolutely butchered the intro when he was coming on, and you can put the underscores where you want the underscores. Now, Steve is a cancer survivor, so he had testicular cancer at age 20, but also has lost a large amount of weight in the last couple of years, and he did it in a sustainable manner. So in his mid-20s, he became a guard and put on a lot of weight with his shift work, and then he hit a point where he decided enough was enough, and he employed a coach who has been on this podcast, you know, as Paul Dermody. And Paul helped him change habits, which led to a dramatic weight loss, but in a sustainable manner. So I'm going to let Steve tell you his story. So as ever, guys, if you are listening to the podcast, sit back and enjoy, or walk and listen, but whatever way, enjoy my podcast or my interview today with Steve Griffen. Okay, guys, so welcome back to the Why Not podcast. Today I have got Steve Griffen with me. So Steve, you may know from Instagram. He is Steve's _ weight loss _ I think. I don't know the underscore positions, but it's Steve's weight loss. He's also survived cancer, and judging by his Instagram name, has made a big weight loss. So welcome to the podcast, Steve. How are you?
Okay, those underscores haunt me. It's like everybody's like, shit, where did I go? I'm like, oh, they're just in between the words. But yeah, the Instagram handle, it's like Ron Seal. I've actually thought about it lately. I'm like, I probably could change this now. I'm like, initially I was just about losing weight. Now I'm like, there's a little bit more to it, but I'm like, oh, just leave it. Like, leave it at this stage. I couldn't think of anything else. I was like, what do I put it down? I was like, no, it's Steve's journey. I was like, it's kind of been used.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah. You're not throwing Steve's transformation?
No, I will leave that to Trisha. That's Trisha's got that copyrighted. I'm just going to leave the transformation thing to her.
But yeah, she has the alliteration as well.
Yeah, it works really nice for her. Just mine doesn't have the same ring to it. I don't have the sass to pull it off.
Yeah, they're like, no, I think you could be sassy enough, but there is a level that she has all right as well.
I have my moments. I've been known to become sassy after a couple of mojitos.
Mojitos are definitely a sassy drink, though.
They're class. They're so good, especially when you have like the big fish bowls, you know, the big massive ones, the ridiculously big goblets.
Yes. Like, I don't want to get gin and tonics now when they come in a normal glass. I'm like, I'll give you the goblet. I don't care if it's cork dry gin.
It's about all the grass and stuff that's growing in it as well. It's like nobody really cares for the gin anymore. It's just like the aesthetics of the glass and what's in it. It's like, oh, look how pretty it is. It's like, I buy to look at it.
Exactly. But it looks great in the Instagram shots.
Yeah, I could change the Steve's gin journey.
Oh my god, that would be class.
My trials and tribulations of trying new gin glasses and combinations.
That could be a side project.
Yeah, we'll get back to that. That's for another day.
Right, so tell everyone all about you.
Okay. I genuinely hate this question because it always feels like you oversell yourself and then you're like, oh shit, I forgot something too. So I'm 30. When I was 20, I got cancer. I had testicular cancer at the age of 20. And I was afterwards, they told me that had I not gone in when I went in, that I might not have made 21, which was, and still is, one of the biggest things, I suppose, in my life. Like, I literally just got goosebumps even thinking about it there. I joined the Guards a couple of years after, which was always a dream of mine. And funny enough, after joining the Guards, I ended up gaining quite a lot of weight. So it was like a positive thing turned into a negative because I changed my routine so much. Everything just in my life just kind of turned upside down in terms of what I knew in terms of day to day. Like, I never really done shift work, or you know, the change in hours was just taking a big impact to me, and I gained a lot of weight over the course of maybe 2 years, maybe 2.5 years. And that kind of accumulated in September 2018. I tipped the scales on the 7th, I think, of September is when I started with Paul at 156 kilos. So it's like 24 and a half stone, I think. I'm not good at the conversions, but it was in around that. And I just started with Paul Dermody, and long-term mate and now long-term coach. And we've, let's see, what have I now? I'm 15 and a half, or 15 and a quarter now. So we're down like 120 pounds.
Wow,
So
that's it.
yeah, it's a person.
This is a person. Now that you mention it.
Like, how much weight have you lost? About a 5'5" female.
That's a really good description of it. That didn't happen overnight, though, did it?
Coming up the description? No, I took practice. No, the weight loss was it was kind of a slow burner, but I suppose initially I lost a lot of weight. Like, I think I'd lost 100 pounds in like 10 months.
Okay.
Because and Paul used to say it the whole time, he's like, you're like painfully in the zone for this. It was just, I got to a point where I was really, really unhappy. And like, when you get to the bottom of the barrel, you know, and you hit that concrete floor, there's nowhere else to go. So you have to go up. And like, I was in a position where I felt like I had no option but to do this. It was really a case of I either did this now or forever I would be in a position of being unhappy and overweight. And I just didn't want that. I didn't want to be, you know, like 40 years of age or 45 with kids and, you know, them asking, you know, Dad, will you come and play? And I'm like, oh my God, you know, or being so knackered that I couldn't kick a football with my kids or, you know, anything like that. And I'm glad I did, because I think, you know, over the course of time, and I'm glad it went slowly in that sense. I picked up a lot of things and I learned a lot. It wasn't like a crash diet where I just drank water and, I don't know, sniffed chocolate bars every 2 weeks to keep sanity.
I don't think anybody wants to do that. Well,
I tried. Well, I didn't sniff chocolate bars, but I tried crash diets. Like, I tried everything, like any of those cliche ones you can think of, you know. And I tried even like shake diets.
oh God.
And all I lost with that was like 120 euro, because, you know, you buy, I think it was like 3 weeks worth, and it was, or 4 weeks, it was probably a month's worth. And it was like 3 shakes a day, and then you could go up a plan and get like a bar as well. But 3 shakes was like, yeah, the bar looked really, really unappealing. And it says a lot when you're on like 1,000 calories a day and you see a chocolate bar and you're like, no. But it was like 1,000 calories. So each shake was like 320 or 325 calories, and they tasted horrible. I remember I did a couple of days, and I was like cold and I was shivering and I had like no energy and headaches, and I was like, this isn't going to work, and I dumped them.
Oh, really?
You know, I just did straight out. There's this big box of them and all this massive branding. There was nothing discreet about it. I'm glad it wasn't anything else. It came in the post, this huge box for like, I can't even remember the name of the company. It was something shake, and I was like, wow, at least everybody know now.
In the whole street.
But yeah, I remember, you know, you get to points where you fail, or you perceive that you fail on these things, and I remember thinking after that, I was like, I'm just not meant to lose weight. Like, that was a good bit before I hit that bottom of the barrel, where I saw the photo from holidays when I was spilling out the t-shirt, and then decided to start with Paul. You know, and it's mad. You know, and people are always like, well, what point did you know? It's like, I just didn't. There were so many times when I was like, oh, what's wrong with me? Like, I always thought there was something wrong with me, that these diets didn't work.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm the problem here. It can't be the fact that drinking 1,000 calories and not eating any solid foods could possibly be unsustainable. Not at all. Don't be ridiculous. It's obviously my fault.
Yeah.
You know, and I think a lot of people resonate with that. A lot of people message me and they're like, I've tried all these things. I've tried crazy diets. And then, like, when Paul told me I could still have my favorite stuff, lose weight, I was like, huh? Like, how
You lied to me.
I was like, how am I supposed to have chocolate and still lose weight? And he's like, you can have a bit of chocolate. You don't have to have the entire multi-pack, but you can have a bit of chocolate. I'm like, oh shit.
Light bulb moment.
I was like, fucking mind blown. I was just like, he's fucking right. And he always used to say about pizza. He's like, you can have 2 slices of pizza. you have to fucking eat the 8. I'm like, I've never really thought about this before. I was like, if somebody put 8 slices of pizza in front of me, I'd probably endeavor to eat all 8.
Not gonna
You
lie,
know,
I do.
yeah, it used to be a badge of honor. I was like, oh, I finished that. And I remember distinctly that holiday I'm talking about, the one in Lanzarote. I had so many of those moments where it was like, you know, you get the giant steaks or you get these huge plates of food, and I was like, oh, I never eat all that. And then afterwards, like, where's my medal?
Challenge complete.
Yeah, it's like man versus food, but weekly.
So what was it? A photo of yourself you saw on holidays? It was kind of like the last final.
Yeah, yeah, it was just eye-opening. I was beside a pool in Lanzarote. We were on a family holiday, and I took a picture with my 2 brothers beside the pool, and we had just been shopping that day, and I bought this t-shirt, and I was like, oh, I'll wear that out tonight, and that was fine. We're going for like dinner and a couple of drinks, and it was real, you know, like the 3 of us were like posing, you know, you'd stand up, chest out, suck it in kind of thing, you know, make it look better. I was like, in hindsight, I was making no difference. But the girlfriend held, you know, when you hold the shutter on a phone and it goes, and it takes loads of pictures.
Yeah.
That's what happened. And there was like this sequence of me just moving. And I obviously went from like the posed, big, strong frame to slouched forward, this brand new t-shirt that shouldn't be this tight on me. I was like spilling out of it at the sides, and I was like, oh shit. I was like, that was the first time I saw myself. And it sounds ridiculous because I suppose I've seen a lot of pictures, but I avoided getting in photographs a lot too.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to see it. And there was something about that photo and one that came shortly before. And when I looked in hindsight, I was like, shit. But I couldn't put my head in the sand anymore. So I couldn't unsee it. And I knew, I just knew, and I messaged Paul. I was lying on a sun lounger in Lanzarote, dying of heat. It was like 40 degrees, it was so hot.
Oh no.
And I was like 25 stone. I was like, this is a horrible mix. And I messaged Paul, and like we'd been mates for a long time. We worked together when we were 18 for a couple of years, working on doors, security in Galway. And I knew he was in Spain. I remember, and I laugh with him now about it because I think he recognized after what I was trying to do, and I was just trying to throw out any kind of olive branch.
Yeah.
And I sent him a message like, "Jesus, Spanish coffee's great. How do you do it? You know, if I lived here the whole time, I'd be an addict. Ironically, I'm now a fucking caffeine addict." But you know, and from that, he was like, "Well, how are you keeping?" I was like, "Well, do you know what?" And it just started, and it's mad. Like sometimes you gotta take the leap. You gotta go. You gotta try. You gotta talk to somebody.
And was it the fact that you knew him that you kind of went for him, or was it that you'd seen what he does or who he works with?
Well, a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. It was like there's complexities that comes with working someone you know too, with someone you know.
Yeah.
Like I would consider Paul a mate. Like we would have been out drinking when we were younger, he's sort of like 60. You know, we would have been good mates in that sense. And there's no, I suppose, running away from somebody you know, because inevitably you're going to see them again, you're going to speak to them again. So for me, there was a certain accountability with going with Paul.
Oh, okay.
No, don't get me wrong. I had seen what he had done with a couple of clients there, and Dave has turned into a mate of mine since, slim to trim. And you know, I thought that's what I want. You know, that's the kind of thing I need to do. And I was like, why not? I was like, it gave me that big brother is watching kind of accountability, you know?
Yeah. What were you surprised with what he gave you or what he told you to do?
Yeah. Yeah. I distinctly remember when he gave me the workout plan, I was like, that's it. He goes, I don't give a fuck what you do. He goes, you can walk around the gym for an hour. He goes, with a dumbbell in your hand. He goes, it's better than what you're doing now. I'm like, that's a pretty good point. I was like, what the levels of simplicity that he broke down things that I considered extremely complex and difficult to understand astounded me. And in hindsight, I was trying to learn about the stars by reading Stephen Hawking's. I was like, yeah, you read a quantum physicist, it's going to become really fucking difficult really fast. I was looking online, I was looking at all these bodybuilders. I was looking at these guys like Steve Cook that works for like Gymshark and all these freak athletes that are 1% people anyways.
Yeah.
And I was like, how come I can't train 3 times a day, eat 5,000 calories and still get lean like him? And Paul was like, you can just go for a walk. I'm like, what? Walking? And I was one of these people, I was like, I'm not going for a fucking walk. I was like, I have a car. Why would I go for a walk? I was like, because you can just do it. It's not difficult. It's low impact. It's good for your head. I'm like, oh, dang. So I started finding ways to just, go for walks more often. And it made such a difference at the start.
Yeah.
Oh, huge, because it wasn't just the fact that I was getting a bit of exercise, although that was a lot of it too. But it was what I wasn't doing whilst I was doing that. So, like, okay, if you imagine I was working a 7 to 5 shift on my earlies. So I'd come home, I lived 5 to 10 minutes away from work. I could have taken a walk to work most days, but I drive anyways. I end up probably longer in traffic than it would have taken me to walk. But like, as you can imagine, there's days where work's not great and everybody has them, and I'd be on the way home and I might pass the first shop and I might pass the Apple Green, and the next thing there's like a Central. I'm like, oh, stop, I get something there. No, I've had a rough day. I justified a lot of bad days with a lot of bad food choices. And when I went walking, I wasn't sitting on the couch eating.
Yeah.
And boredom eating had become a big thing for me, and I'd fallen into habits around shifts, because obviously we have repetitive shifts. And I fell into ways of eating around those.
Okay.
And like on my early shifts, I'd end up having effectively a breakfast and a carvery lunch, and then going home and having a dinner. And for the dinner, the carvery lunch was as big as my dinner, so I was consuming a huge amount of calories, kind of unknowns to myself for a long time.
Yeah. Would you say it was the shift work that kind of helped you build those bad habits in a sense?
Yeah, no, I would. No, I obviously I can sympathize with anybody who's doing shifts, and a lot of people will ask me, how do you manage it? And I'm like, you have to find your own way, because there's very few, and I've worked with plenty of people, and we all work the same shifts, but we all manage them differently, whether it's our sleep or our food choices. Like I only had this conversation yesterday with somebody. I like to, after I finish at 7 a.m., I might sleep about 6 hours and then I get a nap in the evening.
Yeah.
Whereas I know lads that could sleep the 8 hours straight through from 7 a.m. to whatever, 3 or 4. I'm like, I couldn't do that. I wake up more tired than I would do if I had just got a couple of hours and then the power nap. Because if I don't get the power nap, I'm tired going to work that night. So, but it's the same with food. You find your way of doing things. You have to find what works for you, because what works for Johnny might not work for Michael. You got to find your own. Yeah, but shift work didn't help. It just, because I ended up eating more. I ended up eating more meals. I just didn't know how to balance it.
How often do you say, if you're doing nights or earlies, how often do they change?
Oh, yeah, we're different to nurses. So I know, well, nurses is generally the best example I can give, because they tend to have a week of nights, a week of days. But at the minute, we have 2 days, 2 nights together.
Okay, so that's a very quick turnaround.
Yeah, it's really rough on the body, but it's kind of it's a temporary thing during COVID.
Yeah.
The old shifts were technically 6 days on, and you might have 4 early shifts, 2 night shifts, or 2 early shifts, 4 nights, or it changes weekly. But you never have a solid week of anything. So it makes it really hard, because you're almost constantly, you're changing your sleeping pattern, you're changing your eating pattern every single week.
And how do you deal with that now? For
Just
eating,
habits.
I'd say.
Yeah, it's just, I literally, like I said, I found my way of doing it. I found the way that worked best for me, because as you can probably imagine and appreciate, things happen at work where I might not get my lunch at, if it's night shift, I might not get my dinner at midnight or 1 o'clock. Something might happen and I'm stuck there for a couple of hours. And I learned through hardship and through it happening to me a few times that I have to prepare for these things. And what I think made the biggest difference for me was controlling what I ate on those shifts. And I know that sounds really obvious, but I used to just say, I'll pick something up. And inevitably at 2 o'clock in the morning, when I was working in Tralee Town, options were quite slim. You were heading to Mackie D's, you were heading to Hillbillies, you were getting some chicken or something. And there's probably, there's a place for them in your diet, but there's probably more optimal food choices to be making every night. Like, I justified fast food, like, any way I could. I had a bad day. This happened, that happened. I made days worse in my head than they ever actually were, or I would justify them. I love sports. I really do. I'd watch paint dry if they could make a sport. But I would go, geez, there's a match on there later. I'll get a Chinese for that. It could be some bullshit second division German league game. Like, I had 80 or 100 sports channels. I was bound to find something.
Yeah.
And like I said, it was just habits. So the shift work was habits, the eating and all that was habits, but my time off and the walking, everything just turned into making better choices and better habits.
Do you ever have, say, bad days for one? Like, if you have bad days now, is there any days where you just kind of go feck it and you go, do you know what?
There's no days where I go feck it. And it's just funny that was the phrase you used, because that's one thing Paul was really a big advocate of, the fuck it button. Yeah. I don't have bad days, and I'll tell you why. If I can try and figure out how to phrase it properly, it's basically because I don't categorize food as bad. I don't see. I used to for a long time. I thought there was, good food, bad food. And that was it. There was no gray area. It was black or white. And, that's, I think, what led to a lot of my diet attempts going pear-shaped. I would insist on being what I thought was good.
Yeah.
Regardless of how sustainable that good was. When I wasn't in a position, like when I was 25 stone, I didn't have the discipline, clearly, or the mindset, or the education, or the tools to put a diet like that in place. I can do it now. I can put myself through that now, and I'm at a totally different place mentally, where I think that the discipline is actually serving me, and I think there's a lot of benefits to it. But at the time, like I said, I thought good food, bad food, and if I slipped it off, I've ruined it. Fuck it, Jesus, what have I done? I can't do this.
Yeah.
And I will happily have dairy milk or a Yorkie or a bag of chips now, but I don't attach negative emotion to it. And I do in the same way that I don't attach positive emotion to eating some broccoli. It's a fucking broccoli.
Yeah.
It's not that I feel great because I have a stick of broccoli. Sure, I'm a great fella, but it's just he got me out of that. It was one of the first big cornerstones, maybe, learning that I could have the pizza, I could have a bit of chocolate and not ruin everything, and I suppose an awareness of calories and my calorie budget allowed me to, over time, make those decisions for myself without Paul's help.
Yeah. Would you track calories normally? Now I know now you're in the middle of a cut, but
I'm a boring-ish eater. That's why I don't share a lot of food pictures. Like I don't cook like Daniel Davy does or like Trisha does. I can't do that. It doesn't look as fucking appealing. I can try as much as I can and follow the recipe, and I'd still burn it or turn it upside down or do something to it.
That's me.
And I just eat the same things. So I've got to the point where I can intuitively, and this is one of my proudest things, I've become very good at cooking pasta and rice without making enough to feed a small town.
Oh, how did you do that? Please tell me.
From just having 50 grams of rice over and over and over and over again. Now I'm like, I can nearly break it down to just grains of rice. I'm like, I know exactly how much is that.
Oh, that is a life goal. Like I don't have that, and like my boyfriend cooks, he definitely makes rice for at least 4 days. There's only 2 of us in the house.
Oh, it's ridiculous. It's those bags. Those bags are a lifesaver as well. The ones that are just like 60 grams and that's it. It's like, well, I can't mess this up, surely.
That's true. You can't mess that one up.
On a bet. But you had to throw down 2 of them. But look, it was learning about calories, really, like that helped all that stuff and counting. I did a while where I didn't count and I gained a bit of weight. So I suppose I was probably still in a position where I should have been counting calories, or at least making some effort. I think it was during the first lockdown, whatever that was. Well, it's all a blur. But lockdown one, I gained a shitload of weight. Well, yeah, I gained a lot of weight. I gained probably gained about 10 kilos, 10, 12 kilos. Which for me was a lot.
Yeah.
Because I think I got down to about 110 or 110 and a half at the time.
You're quite tall as well, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm 6'4". So I'm
5'2",
not.
so.
Yeah, well, it's one of those subjective things. It's like you're quite tall. It's like, well, compared to somebody who's 5'2", yes, but compared to, I don't know, some lad in the NBA, like 6'4" is short in the NBA.
Yeah, I think it's more even as well, just to give people reference. So if you say you're 110 kilos, okay, it's also 6'4", so right now that's quite lean.
Yeah, I'm a large, I'm broad and tall, so it was one of those things where people are always like, oh, you carry it well. It's like, people said this to me when I weighed 25 stone too, so I'm like, excuse me if I'm a little bit skeptical. It's like, I don't think I carry 25 stone well. Like I said, I felt like a beached whale that time in Lanzarote when I was on the sun lounger and it was like 40 degrees. I thought I was gonna have a stroke. I was like, this isn't good. But yeah, like lockdown one, I stopped counting. Kind of, gyms are closed. And it was the first time. I remember I was saying I built a lot of good habits, good routine.
Yeah.
Lockdown ruined that for me initially.
I can imagine, yeah.
So it was the first time in 2 years that I didn't have the ability to go to the gym. And in my head I was like, oh, I can't gym, but boring walks were kind of starting to kill me. I was like, and I didn't quite get into the home workout thing like everybody else did for the first lockdown. I also didn't bake banana bread though, so I mean I didn't go to either side of the fucking abyss. But
to get anyone pregnant either. That's what I seem to be seeing. Everyone's pregnant at the moment now as well.
A lot of lockdown babies. A lot. But yeah, I think on the grander scheme of it, I lost it. I gained 12 kilos. I lost it again, so I got that one's okay.
Yeah.
That was okay.
I suppose well with your job though, when lockdown happened, you guys probably went into overdrive.
Yeah, it was bananas initially. Really was. I was just saying before we started, how busy I've been for the last couple of weeks. This is the first time in a month where I've had actual days off, and with the fact that I'm training a lot now again, I was just exhausted. But initially it was, we were just all hands on deck, but it was controlling the controllables. I was controlling what I brought to work with me. I had my little snack pack thing that I always leave in the patrol car and stuff. And people always wonder, how can I do this or how can I be better at that? It's like you come up with your own stuff. My snack pack has saved me. It's literally a bit of fruit, maybe not yogurt, but protein bar, things that I can leave in the cooler bag. It's only like a tiny lunch cooler bag, but I can just leave it in the boot. And should I get stuck somewhere, I don't know, an accident or something, an emergency for a couple of hours, it's there.
Yeah.
And I don't have to go into McDonald's or Burger King. I can make maybe more educated, balanced decisions. Like the protein shake, the protein bar, whatever it is I have.
It's so simple though, isn't it? And I think people underestimate that, just planning it.
Yeah, it's I remember Paul said it to me at the start. It was what gets measured gets managed, and controlling the controllables. And they've stuck with me since, because they just make loads of sense. It was one of those things, when he broke it down, it was so simple that I was like, how did I never really pinged this? I'm like, how is this fella breaking this down so simply to things that I should already know, but I clearly don't? And and I've used the phrase control the controllables so many times, and people are like, oh, it's like, fuck, I never thought about controlling the controllable things. It's like people lose their shit worrying about stuff they can't control.
Yeah.
Just what you got, work it.
I think that was one of the phrases that got me through the lockdown. Because well, I can't fix what's going on, but what I can do is how I react. That's the only thing I can control. So this is what I'm going to do every day. Write me little notes down.
Yeah, it's kind of I think it's a thing for life. Like you said, there's just so much stuff happened, and the vast majority of what happens around us is out of our control. I only had this conversation with Shane the other day about people that watch the news and get really maybe down or upset. It's like, oh, something happened in China or Japan or Australia, the outside of the world, and they're like, oh, and you know, they're a bit sad or whatever, but it's like, it's not that it's not bad because it doesn't happen to you, but it doesn't happen
Yeah.
to you, so don't let it affect you so negatively. Like we're as a nation, we're obsessed with news and gossip and other people's stories and stuff, and it's like people talk about bad news more than they do good news about the looks of it.
Yeah, no, that's 100%. I'm
No.
sure you see it as well, like, and on the internet, like something, if you put something negative up, you'll go further than something positive.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I heard a thing a long time ago where it's like if somebody eats in a restaurant and it's not nice, they're more likely to tell 10 people. If they eat somewhere and it's nice, they'll tell one person.
yeah,
It's like bad word of mouth gets around.
it's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, remember I warned you before this podcast. I was like, I'm going to answer questions and forget what the question was. And it's after happening to me. I'm like, how the fuck do we start talking about restaurants?
I'm not gonna
Whatever,
lie,
yeah.
I'm kind of not certain myself how we got here.
Sorry, I was just like, where did this come from? I was like, how did I start talking about bad restaurants?
Controlling controllables, that's how we got from there somewhere.
Yeah, welcome to my life. Tangents.
Here, I'm actually interested to know as well, though, like, how do you find training around shift work? Like, I know that it's all like grand planning and stuff like that and working around the shift work, but like, when you've been up all night and you have to go train at some point,
Yeah,
like,
it's tough. It's one of those things, and it's a bullshit answer. And if somebody said this to me 3 years ago, I'd be like, you fucking cop out. It's discipline.
yeah,
You know, it's just getting it done. But a lot of it is finding something I enjoy as well, though.
yeah,
I enjoy the weightlifting elements of it at the minute. I enjoy, you know, watching changes come about. And, you know, I was told for a long time, you have to hit, you have to do sprints, you have to do this. You know, you won't lose weight otherwise. There was a specific exercise for weight loss. You know, there's no point you lifting those kind of weights because, Jesus, sure, you can't see them. You're too fat, basically.
yeah,
You know, whereas like Paul said, if I walked around the gym for an hour holding dumbbells, it was just better than what I was doing. You
yeah.
know, so
But it's also as well, like, if you're with that kind of weight that you were at, like, that's not going to be good for your joints.
no, most definitely not. You know, and that's why myself in sprints never got far at 25 stone. My knees, my hips were just banjaxed.
Yeah,
You know, I'm never going to be, and I've never been a great runner. Like I'm awkwardly big and
yeah,
just awkward anyways. But I got into running, which was weird. It was a strange middle part. It was like a weird phase. It was like a mid weight loss crisis. Um, I got into running purely from years of people like, "Oh, you're not a runner," and I kind of have I hold on to things, but I like to think that I can hold on to things, negative things, in a positive light.
mm,
So, like somebody asked me just after I had started with Paul, like I only just signed up with them, and I wasn't even chatting to them. And I was at work, and they just turned to me and they were like, "Oh, Steve, you looks like a fella who'd know where to eat." And I was like, "Oh, you dickhead."
yeah,
I was like, and that stuck with me for at least a year, maybe a year and a half. I had that as my wallpaper on my phone. I had it in just the quote that he said, and every single day I saw it. But it's one of those that if you're in a place where you can use it as I'll fucking show that guy. It's great.
yeah.
But if you're holding it and it's boiling and you're negative because of it, it's not so good.
Would you say that's your kind of, if someone says something negative about you, you do find a way to be like, I'll show you.
It's like the running. People telling me I'm not a runner, I'm like, I'll show you. I'll do fucking half marathons and 30Ks and stuff.
Did you do it all?
I did. I struggled through them. I struggled to the very last one I did. I really struggled through it.
That's more than a lot of people who said you're not a runner
I've
have
got the
ever done.
medals. I've got medals hanging in the room there. It's like I've got them. I was like, they can't be taken away. It's not like I'm just going to get dope tested for the Olympics or something. Nobody's taking my medal away for running a 30K in Clare.
Claire.
Yeah, I nearly died. That was tough. I was so bad because I got hurt. It was just the accumulation of bad shit happening. That so I ran the Galway Bay half marathon the Saturday before,
Mm.
I ran a charity 5K on Friday, and then I ran the 30K on Saturday.
You don't
And
think by half, do you?
no, Jesus, no. Like I said, crisis. But I got my physio wrapped my ankle before the 30K because I had a tendonitis issue. And that's when we discovered that I was allergic to elastoplast.
Oh.
Except we didn't find out until the next day when I was about 3-4 kilometers into the 30K. And like my foot started swelling, and it was like the entirety of the underside of my foot was wrapped in the tape. So it effectively blistered the whole thing. And I ran like 25K on one foot, and I was banjaxed after. I was the height of stubbornness. I was like, I'm not stopping. And it was this horrible uphill, downhill course or route.
Yeah.
And it was constant pressure. I was like, oh my God. And I was just so thick that I went through it. I suffered for weeks after those. I was like, oh, wasn't worth it. Yeah, kind of.
I showed that plaster.
Yeah, it's like I showed that plaster and I showed him his boss. And then I walked funny for about 4 weeks, so each showed me.
Yeah. You still beat it. In a sense.
Got the medal. It's all that matters. Trophies and medals.
Yeah, exactly. So you're doing a cut at the moment for a shoot, aren't you?
Yeah. It's a totally self-inflicted decision. It itched at me for ages, the thought of this. And I asked 3 people who, like, my circle's really important to me in the sense that I know I can talk to them. I have different circles. There's different circles for different things. I wouldn't ask the same people necessarily about books or work that I would do at the gym, but I asked 3 of the lads. I asked Paul, I asked Shane Walsh, and I asked Brian Keane for a genuine, what do you think? Can I do this? And I don't know, did I need the reassurance, or was I kind of looking for more of an expert opinion on it? And they all came back. They were like, absolutely. And I won't forget, Brian said, you've asked me this before. This has been on your mind. You mentioned this before. Is this going to be one of these things that if you do not do this now, it's forever going to be a regret? And I'm like, yeah. I was like, it's either I do it now, or when I'm at a point where I don't have kids and responsibilities and I can do it,
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm 12. This is week 12, I think. Yeah, I have a month left. It's week 12.
And do you know why you wanted to do it, or just to see if you could, or another challenge kind of thing, or?
It's another challenge thing, yeah. It's pretty much what it was. It was just another, it was like the running. I couldn't run a kilometer, then I couldn't run 5 and 10 and 15, 20, 25, 30. And bit by bit I chipped away at it. And this was a bit like that. It felt like a natural progression.
Yeah.
I had done I know it's still weight loss, but I had done the extreme weight loss element for 2 years-ish, give or take, with a couple of hiccups. But, it just felt like a natural step to take in terms of my learning, anyways, of training, my development physically, and in terms of my mental maybe change or outlook as well. It felt like it was just the right way to go. And like I said earlier, I think I've learned a lot about myself doing this.
Yeah.
I probably didn't give myself enough credit in the sense that I have faith in myself. But I think it's probably good for you to impose, or to try and impose, a certain amount of discipline on yourself.
Yeah.
I just think it's good for you.
Has it been harder or easier than you thought it would be?
That is a difficult one to answer.
Yeah.
It's the food element's not been as bad as I thought. I'm getting to the point, like I said to you earlier, where it feels a bit repetitive, and I know it's going to be like I'm eating the same meals effectively every day.
Yeah.
And I can throw any amount of no calorie sauces on that I want, they're still the same thing. I'm at a point where I can see myself developing physically, and it's nice, but I'm also ready for this to kind of be over so I can have a dirty bag of chips and a burger or something, but again, it's at the same time, whilst I'm looking forward to the end, I'm excited for the bit in between.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying it. Like I always say, I'm enjoying the climb up the mountain. I'm not just looking for the view at the top.
I think as well with you've had like the long journey, so this was like another step up. Whereas I think too many people probably try to go for what you're doing now, off the back of nothing.
I couldn't have done this 2 years ago.
Mm.
No way. I just wouldn't have had the ability to discipline myself. Like I teamed up with Paul because I needed the accountability. I needed somebody watching me.
Yeah.
And whilst I'm kind of back with Paul now, it's an unofficial capacity as a mate / coach rather than just a coach. I'm responsible for myself now.
Yeah.
I'm keeping track of myself. I'm keeping track of my training, my weight, my food. It's not Paul's responsibility. Don't bother Paul, good or bad, if I do this.
Yeah.
He's still going to be a fucking demigod.
But he is there for you though if you do need it. You're not going completely solo either.
No, not at all. No. He came up with the training plan. And he broke down the food for me at the start as to how much I should be eating of this and how many meals, because he's been there. And I think Paul's in a great place in terms of what he did. He did a show when he competed, and he saw the positive and the negative out of it.
Yeah.
And he's really well positioned to make sure that I don't maybe face the same negatives that he faced or perceived negatives that he faced.
Yeah, so he might notice if you were slipping into dangerous habits, for say, because I know he came out the other side with a few issues for a while.
Yeah, like I don't want to talk about it because I don't know too much about it, but I know that there was a point where stuff had happened, and I suppose I can see how you'd fall into a negative headspace with this. I had a couple of days there, a few weeks ago, I was just thick. I was just getting grumpy and tired and hungry, and I was like, oh God, I was like, I want to kill somebody. And I had to apologize to people after. I'm like, sorry for what I said when I was hungry. But yeah, it's enjoyable. It is enjoyable. I am enjoying it. So I won't pretend like it's not, but at the same time now I'm just like, can we be there?
Yeah. I think it's important to remember as well, there's an end date to it. I think.
Oh yeah, I couldn't do what I'm doing that long term. It's just not sustainable. That's the key to any balance, whether you're trying to be Mr. Olympia or you're trying to lean up for whatever it is you want to do. I couldn't eat this egg whites every morning and 4 meals a day or 5 other meals a day of chicken and rice and potatoes. You'd need the variety to keep it interesting,
Yeah, no, I can see that. What would you say is the biggest thing you've learned along like the whole journey?
Self-belief.
Yeah.
Is that a learned trait? Like I said, I didn't believe in myself for a long time. I didn't think, and like I said, I fail at diets, and I used to say shit like, I'm obviously the issue. That's not something somebody like me can do, or those things. But when it came to this particular bit, the cut, it wasn't so much I can't do that as it was like, why couldn't I do that?
Yeah.
There was a distinct change in how I spoke to myself and thought about myself, and that only came through doing. It came with the discipline, and it came with the change of habits and everything that came with the initial weight loss journey.
Yeah, that's not an overnight thing. It's a
no. It's and I think a lot of people expect a lot to happen fast, both physically and mentally, and they're going to master calories, and they're going to master the diet, and they're going to do all these things, and it's just not what happens. You fail, you're going to fail, it's going to happen, and it's how you respond when you fail, or how you respond when you do something that you would have perceived as a bit of a failure. It's the learning you take from it. That's the success. It's not always being perfect. It's being able to be imperfect to learn from it.
Yeah. No, you're right. I think we're too worried about not being perfect, but perfect doesn't exist.
We want 10 and gold stars the whole time.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like that. You know, you're going to have less optimal days. And for me, something I've become good at is dissecting those.
Yeah.
And I've got particularly good at dissecting days of training now. And I'm like, that session didn't feel good. And I'm like, why? Was I tired? Did I have more carbs before this leg day, or what was it? But that's a learned trait. It's something, you know, before I would have been like, oh, that was a shit session. Whereas now I'm like, I still got up and did it.
Yeah.
I'm better than I would have been if I had stayed on the couch. It was still a perfectly good session. Maybe I didn't have, I don't know, as big a lift or as big a pump or whatever it was, but I'm still better than I would have been if I stayed at home.
Yeah. That's so true. I think that's a big mindset shift, isn't it? Like being like, well, at least I did it.
It is. And I think, you know, your it can be very different. You know, everybody's it is going to be different from each other because everybody's own starting position is different. It's like, I got people message me. It's not that I cringe when I see it, but it's like, oh, I couldn't do what you've done. Well, why couldn't you? And then they're like, well, I don't have this, and this, or I can't do this. And it's like, okay, well, you don't have to do those things. You can do your thing. Like, it's, you know, one of my best mates is a good runner, but when I was 25 stone, I wasn't going to do that. That's not how I would have lost weight. So I just went for a walk around the park.
Yeah.
It's not to say that you have to do 3 leg days a week just because your favorite bodybuilder does it. So you might not be able. I get DOMs so bad, and I like training legs, but I get such bad DOMs. No way could I do legs 3 times a week. But like where I was 2 years ago, I was reading about these bodybuilders and I was looking at them training legs 3 days a week. And I felt like the failure. It's nothing to do with these guys being on every kind of supplement and steroid and growth hormone that you could find.
Oh, but they're all natural, you know that, right?
Oh, natural vitamins. It's the really expensive multivitamins.
Yeah, that's what it is. But they have a discount code,
But
so
at
you
the
can be
same
like
time,
them.
I still love them. It's like one of my Jay Cutler is literally one of my favorite people in the world.
Yeah.
I love extreme people. I reckon I have a thing for like extremes.
It's like not in a bad way, but it does sound like that. You kind of go for it. Put your head down and go for stuff.
I love 1% people. I love their mindset. I love their outlook. I love the drive and determination they show. Like, you can't just be Mr. Olympia. Like, you're not the biggest, best bodybuilder in the world just cause. And I'm never under the illusion that I could ever, you know, like no normal person does that. That takes, you know, 10, 15 years of constant training, nutrition, and it takes them so much work to get there. But it's the same thing with these guys that do 100K super tries or whatever they are. So these people, that's why I love Joe Rogan. They are lunatics. But like, I love listening to Joe Rogan because he talks to this like really successful or really extreme 1% of society that are at the top of their games.
Yeah.
And really successful people, and there's always some sort of learning to be got from them, one way or the other. I love David Goggins too. That dude's insane.
Oh, he is.
And he literally pushed me through. Like his book, I'm not a faith person. I don't believe. I'm not a believer of things happen for a reason. But his book just appeared in my Audible library. I don't know how I ended up downloading it because I didn't know who he was. I didn't know anything about him. It was perfect. It was what I needed. And I've spoke to people since and I've recommended the book and they're like, I don't like him. He shouts or he swears. I'm like, yeah, he does. That's fucking awesome. But he's an extreme, insane individual. I'm never under the illusion I do that. But there's a lot of learning in that dude, or you know.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's horses for courses.
Definitely, yeah. No, I do love all that stuff as well. I love when people are to the point and like just fucking do it.
And that's kind of his gig.
Yeah. I listened to the podcast when Brian Keane actually recommended to me. So when he listens to on Rick Roll's podcast, and after I was like, yes, I need to get my life in order. This is amazing.
It's unbelievable the profound effect that a book, a podcast, a person you've never met and likely won't ever meet could have on you.
Yeah.
He had that book, Can't Hurt Me, had a huge role to play in my mindset development. Huge role. And it was funny because Paul was like, I don't really like him. It's where me and Paul differ. Paul often told me that I was a little bit more like Brian in ways that, especially with the holding on to it was mostly about the holding on thing, actually, about the comments, the throwaway comment about food and restaurants. Paul was like, just let it go. I'm like, nope, fuck him. And he's like, oh, you're so like Brian. He's like, Brian would do the same, but it's like Paul likes your man Naval Rakitic, and I don't. So it's, you can't always just follow the crowd. Sometimes you gotta set the trend, or you gotta be the person that starts.
Yeah, so true. Okay, I'm pretty sure that's pretty much everything. But I have one question left that I ask people, and it is, what is the best advice you've ever been given?
Oh fuck.
I always get a good reaction from people who haven't read the questions beforehand, and that's always in there.
I was going to make a kind of throwaway comment joke, but I don't know if it's tasteful. The best advice I ever got was go to the doctor. That was for one person to ever advise me of something that had the biggest effect. The night I texted my mother and said, I have this awful pain. I was at work when the night I went to the hospital to get told I had cancer. I thought I had a hernia.
Yeah.
And she was like, look, if you're not going to be able to sleep, go to the doctor, go to the hospital, go to A&E. And, the doctor told me after I had I don't like using the word rare, but it was a very different cancer. It was like 1 in a quarter million, in the sense that it grew at an exponential rate. It grew so fast.
Yeah.
I had a very mature tumor and stuff. So I suppose her telling me to go to the doctor, and he told me that, had I not come in, I might not have made 21, which is only like 5 months away.
Yeah.
So that advice.
That's life-saving advice.
Be the best, but it was life-saving from a fitness point of view. Best advice could, it could be controllables.
Yeah.
Because if you can control anything that's within your control, you are on a pretty good road. And every day the controllables might be different every single day. They might be different for every single person. But if you can control what you can in your life, that's all you can do.
Oh, that's perfect. There are 2 very good pieces of advice, I have to say. So, pretty sure that
the first one's a bit specific.
Yeah, I know, but it's still like, to you, it was probably the best. Like, it could be the difference to you being here now today. So I don't take away from that at all.
Yeah, no, genuinely, and it's one of those things. It's you grow up fast when you hear those bits.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think as well, there could be someone listening who, say, is ignoring something, and listening to that will go, oh shite, maybe I should get that checked. So
I'm telling you now, I've become a big advocate for it. It's something I insisted on after. We did the typically Irish things, like, we won't tell people if you don't want. It's like, why wouldn't I tell people? It's like, because it was effectively the same surgery as a hernia, so nobody'd know. And I was like, I was kind of lucky to know about this. I knew that testicular cancer was a thing. So I was in sports. I was into Lance Armstrong, and I knew he had it. And I was like, me knowing about that subconsciously helps. So somebody maybe knowing about me might help. And I've had people message me that I didn't know when they saw an article I did with, Irish Cancer Society or something, and they were like, because you went to the doctor. I'm like, that makes it all worthwhile. If one person takes one thing from anything I ever do, it's like, it's worthwhile.
Yeah. It's very Irish thing, isn't it? Oh, we won't tell anyone. That's a bit bad. We don't want to bring them down.
Yeah, and I like, nobody meant it like that, but I suppose it's one of those things that once you put it out, you can't get it back.
Yeah,
whereas
true.
You can control when it goes out, but you can never take it back. There's no undo button.
Yeah, fair. But I think you've done it for the right reasons, and you've been able to help people by speaking about it. So
I'd like to think so. Look, I think there's no such thing as negative awareness.
Yeah, you're right. I think so as well. But with that note, I think we shall end. So, do you want to tell everyone where they can find you?
Yeah, well, on the super positive end note of cancer, Yeah, I'm on Instagram. It's just Steve's_weight_loss. I usually don't even say the underscores because you did them at the start. I was like, oh, I better say them now. I
I
just
was
usually
gonna
say Steve's weight loss.
I was gonna say it's straight through, and I was like, and then I overthought it, and then it'll put underscores everywhere, so I didn't know where they were.
See, this is thinking's dangerous, man. Just go off the cuff.
See, I think with mine, I was really lazy. I just put Chrissy H Fitness in one word, and then I see other people using underscores, and I'm like, no time for that. They can break it out.
Yeah, I can't even remember. I remember not spending a lot of time thinking about the name.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Oh, so anyway, we'll say Steve's weight loss. You can find the underscores wherever you want. And as I just said there, you'll find me on Instagram and also on TikTok at Chrissy H Fitness. So thanks again for joining us today, Steve.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you again for listening to the Why Not podcast. It really means a lot that you are listening in, and I would love if you could please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or subscribe on Spotify. And always, I'd love to hear feedback personally, so if you do want to leave me a message and let me know how you found the podcast, please do.